Hey folks, I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do for a while, and that's a book review. And not just any book review, but a book in particular that I grew up with and I hold very fondly, very fond memories of. And anyhow, so I'm going to just get to it. This is a book that we picked up in sometime in the early 80s. It's one of those coffee table books. But, before the internet and stuff, that's all we had to, read at the table and stuff. It's the complete Encyclopedia of Battleships by Tony Gibbons. And as you can see, this book has been very well loved. The cover, actually, dust jacket's gone. The back is, the pages are in pretty good shape on the inside, but it's gotten a lot of love. This is a book that was picked up by my dad. I grew up with this book, and I got my love of history, and not wargaming, but history from my dad. He seemed to have a little bit about everything, and he was always interested in battleships, and that's kind of what I got interested in middle school. I started reading about World War II and Battle of the Atlantic and everything, and got into wargaming that same period. So anyways, let me just cut to the chase and show you guys what this is. I don't know if this video, I've never done a book review before. I just want to show off how beautiful this book is. It doesn't look like it, but I mean, let's just get to the chase here. You can see, hopefully you'll agree with me. So we'll see here. It's and this is still available on Amazon and eBay. It's not an outrageous price, but it goes here from 1860 to the present day, which in this case was 1983. So I'm pretty sure we picked up this book at probably a Walden Books or something like that in the early 80s. So it's subdivided into sections here by date, 1860 through 1940 onwards. So just get to it. It's pretty easy reading. Has the descriptions here of all the types. Introduction here. And it pretty much starts on with ironclads, and nothing too impressive so far. Nothing that would really get you excited. It's just some brief history here from all the periods. Goes into World War II, and here we go. Each section is subdivided into basically like a decade. So this is 1860 to 1869. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so it talks a little bit about the periods, the stuff that happens, mines and torpedoes, machinery, and here we go. Full color. Hopefully we can get this lighting under control. I think that's a little bit better. But basically in here, this is like before I had a copy of Conway's. This is a lot of detail from the early 80s. I mean, you're talking about, for each one of these ships, it'll tell you, like this one's the Glory. Tells you the year it came into service, the other ships in the class, when it was laid down, launched, who the builder was, displacement, dimensions, what kind of machinery it had, armor, thicknesses, and the armament, performance in knots, and this one in particular says how much coal it has, and also the crew, and then a description here of everything about the ship. Now, most of the ships don't have the 2-page breakdown. Like if you see them turn into this, well, okay. Well, this is the Glory and the Warrior. They were, I believe, built in response to each other just before the American Civil War. But most of them will have a spread like this. You'll have one big one and some smaller one. But every one of the ships, even though they'll have like a black and white picture of the ship, it still goes in detail about all of these specifics that I just went over. So even though these large ones have a double-page spread and have a lot more history, each one of these other ones will also have a breakdown of everything on it. And I just digested that. So, I mean, it was awesome just learning about all these ships. And as you can see, this is full of color. I guess these are based on real paintings, which, have got to be beautiful. Somewhere. So you've got all of these ships, and of course these are this is battleships. Some of these are coastal defense ships, but they're basically capital ships. You've got some of the monitors, that kind of stuff. Ships most people have never even heard about. Here's one that was built for the Confederate Navy, the Stonewall, and I believe it, see here it talked about it was purchased by the Confederacy, sailed for America because it was built in Bordeaux. It was built by the French under a captain. She was shadowed in Spanish waters by the Union wooden ironclad. I mean, it's just some awesome details about this stuff. And if you combine this with, this is before there was an internet. You couldn't get this information anywhere else. So it's really nice to see for wargaming and stuff. Really gives you nice pictures here of all these ships here. So here you've got the Huáscar and the Independencia. That was one of the first battles there of the Pacific, just after the American Civil War. I believe that's the first time torpedoes were used. So I could be wrong. That's not really my time period, but I was always a World War II. World War II naval is really what I got into, and World War One. Got some really nice double-page spreads. This is, like I said, still available on eBay. I mean, there's a lot of detail here, and it's really easy reading. So we're still in that first section, 1860 to 1869. So pretty amazing. If you're going to be painting some of these ships up, this is a really good place to start looking at some of these schemes. Now, some of you may already be aware of this book, may even have it, but I just figured I'd share it because I thought it was flippin' awesome. I mean, I've always loved this book ever since we got it. So here we go. All right, we made it through 9 years. Now we're 1870 to 1879. Again, a little bit about gunnery, machinery. Okay, and then we're right into the pictures. You can see most of these are probably from the British Navy. That's they really got out of control and really took off. And let's see if we can get the lighting on there. Well, hey, you'll just have to get the book if you want a better picture, right? It's running about $30 US or so. I'm not getting any of the money of the sales. I thought about buying another copy of it because I love this book so much, but this one just holds sentimental value. It was my dad's book, and he's not with us anymore, and it's just one of the things I remember. His love of ships. So lots of beautiful color plates. Another Chilean ship. So, it's not just large navies. It's not British, French, German, Italian, American, Japanese. It's all over the place. It's navies you may not be familiar with. Here's one from Portugal. Here's an ironclad from 1878, Vasco da Gama. Who's ever heard of that thing? I know some of you probably have, but I mean, they have unusual things. Hey, look, it's the Portuguese naval jack. Nobody knows what that one is. But like I said, really cool stuff here. Oh, look, the original Dreadnought, not the one that changed the naval warfare pace, but one from 1879. Okay, now we're up to 1880 and 1889. I suspect we're going to see the French here, the French ships here, the crazy-looking French ships. Got the Duilio here. I think this is the one of these Italian ships. It might be actually the Italia that came a little later. I actually had a torpedo boat. Oh, no, I think it's this one. I actually had a torpedo boat that would launch out of it, one of these. Anyhow, Italians had some really interesting early ships designed by a guy named Bryn. He's kind of the Jackie Fisher of the time period. He did some crazy stuff. I think this one had really big guns that fired really slow. Yeah, 4 17.7-inch guns, and that's it. No secondary armament. and torpedo tubes, and it was really fast for its time. And I believe this is the one that had the because this housing looks familiar, where one of the class. There's actually two in the class, and I believe one of them launched a small torpedo boat out of it. Could be launched a Duilio and the Dandolo from 1880. So never wargamed that period. I've come really close to looking for a set of rules that doesn't take all day to play, and also the problem with naval rules is it's you want something where you've got decisions to make, but you also don't want something that'll take multiple days to get resolved. I grew up playing Sea Krieg, and unfortunately I don't have the time really to finish one of the games. I love the detail, but I'd like something a little bit slower. The Chinese ships too. So anyhow, okay, this is the other Italian ship that's a sister. This one I think was made, it can carry like 10,000 troops, but had like no belt armor. So some really crazy ships in here. You got a battleship with open barbettes, no armor, really fast, and can carry like 10,000 troops. That's some crazy stuff. So cool things in here. Yep, the French designs are already starting up here with the high freeboards. What was that? That was a Brazilian ship? Yep, Brazilian ship, Brazilian battleship. Okay, here come the French designs with the... Here we go. I think that's a little bit better. Trying to find somewhere here to get a good lighting so you guys can see. 1890 to 1899. Okay, here's the ones that people are more familiar with. The pre-Dreadnaughts here. Should end with the Spanish-American warships. Victoria. Speaking of Spanish-American War, he's a Pelayo. This is one that a Spanish battleship that didn't make it in time over to the battles. Yep, here we go. Here are the really cool French designs. I think they're really neat looking. I said there's a lot in here, especially when this book came out in 1983. This is pretty. Hey, remember the Maine? Well, there she is. So I think it's still up in the air what it was all about. So, and then the Indiana, which also went in the Spanish-American War. And start getting into the late 1890s, where some of these ships that were going towards the Russo-Japanese War. Here's another one here, Fuji, Japanese. Okay, pre-Dreadnaughts, just before the big change. So, unless you're really into this period, the further you go along in this book, are the more ships that that most people are familiar with. Here's a pre-Dreadnought and a World War I scheme, no doubt, with the crazy quilt type thing. So there's a lot of color pictures in here. Yes, there's some black and whites, but they are certainly the exception. The Mikasa, Tsarevich, all pre-Dreadnaughts. And it's just capital ships, so you're not going to have cruisers or anything like that in here. And there are some ships towards the end, like the Washington Treaty in the 30s. You'll see ships that are in here that were never built, so that's kind of cool too. This is I'm sorry. This is 1800s Dreadnoughts. So this is some of the first line stuff in World War I. And there she is, Dreadnought herself. Okay. Okay, 1910 to 1919. Here's the World War I. The guys are on the front line. U.S. South Carolina with the cage masts. Okay. Oh, battle cruisers are in here too, because here's the Lion. Okay, yeah, here's if you look at the talking about ships that were never built. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. So the interesting thing about this book is every one of them, I didn't mention this before. There's a little outline here, and you see. And basically, if you go to the beginning of the book, let's go back in time. You'll see two silhouettes. One of them is black, and that's this ship. And then the blue one is the Dreadnought in blue, so it gives you a size comparison of what this ship looks like if it was laid right next to HMS Dreadnought. Now this is the 1906 Dreadnought, not the one from the 18. Oh well, look, it's even on the Dreadnought. Look at that. How ironic. So this is the old Dreadnought, the 1879 one, versus the 1906 one, and it's on every single one of the ships, even if it has a black and white drawing. It still shows the comparison. So you could see, you've got the length here, but you could give an idea. I mean, look at this little Brazilian thing. It's tiny compared to, say, this one. Now, there's some ships, actually, that, if I remember correctly, I believe Warrior was like the longest ship for a long time. I mean, it's like the second ship in the book, 1861, and it's almost as long as HMS Dreadnought from 1906. Now, as soon as you get to 1906, what you're going to notice is you're going to have, they're going to be, you get some of these longer ships. They're actually longer than the HMS Dreadnought, but they still put the Dreadnought in all of them in blue to compare the difference between both of the ships. So you get an idea about the size. What I was getting at was, here's one that has battle cruiser design, 1913 in France. Okay, this was never built, but it gives you kind of like a little sketch of what they might have looked like if they were built. And still the specifics here, a little bit of history here. There are ships in here that weren't built. There's not very many, and there's certainly towards the end of the book, I don't believe there's very many designs before 1900 that are included in here, but it's kind of cool. And it does have this size there for comparison, which is really neat, so you can wrap your head around, exactly how big is, this one. Like, this is the Spanish Dreadnoughts that they made, the España class. There was 3 of them, and they had interesting careers, and that one got mined, and they were on, I think 2 of them were on opposites. One of them, well, without going into detail here, they really had an interesting history. But what I was bringing up is, even though they're Dreadnoughts, I believe there's the smallest Dreadnoughts of any country. They're significantly smaller than HMS Dreadnought, but they have an interesting history. They fought, 2 of them fought on opposite sides of the Spanish Civil War. One was mined. Really neat stuff. I've thought about doing Spanish Civil War naval wargaming, but hey, I'm a war gamer. I've thought about doing just about anything, so there's that. I'm sure a problem that most of y'all have. Okay, so we're going to continue on in the World War I ships. Iron Duke. And the Texas in a World War II color scheme after reconstruction. Here's what she looked like in World War I. And Soviet battleship after reconstruction. Queen Elizabeth class. And here's start getting into the Italian World War I ships, which were converted into the World War II version. Looks significantly different. We had those when we played war games. And then you also get some battleships that were converted into, before they were finished, into aircraft carriers. So if you'll see that, this is HMS Eagle, which was started as something else. I don't remember. I used to know this stuff right off the bat, but okay, it was ordered as a Chilean battleship, Almirante Cochrane. So it's taken over by Britain in 1917, completed in 1920 as aircraft carrier Eagle. She's shown here in 19... I had a model of her in 1/2400 scale that I painted up like that, and we used her quite a few war games. She didn't have a big complement of aircraft, so it was easy to actually wrap your head around that and still make her useful. Carriers sometimes get too powerful, and then it ends up becoming a don't see each other from the horizon game, which is not really what we wanted to get into with a combat game. We want the ships seeing each other and damaging each other in a game. So, okay. Oh, here's an Italian ship that was never built. Francesco Caracciolo. I think I said that right. If not, hey, that's pretty good considering I only speak 2 languages. So, Bayern. And I'm going to start getting into really close. Oh, here's the Courageous. These guys are really funky. They converted them several different ways, and then for landings they were going to do in the Baltic against Germany in World War I didn't really pan out, and they got converted into aircraft carriers, some of them. So, okay, 1921, 1929. I suspect we're probably going to see a lot of ships that were never built in this zone, because this is the Washington Treaty area. So here's HMS Hood in all her glory. She's huge. I remember when we used to play with this. This is like one of the longest ships we had. It was longer than Bismarck, and well, I didn't really have any Pacific ships. I always liked the European stuff better. But Hood is a extremely long ship. Sleek design. Nagato. Okay, here we get into the Japanese battleships that were never in battle cruisers or weren't built as them, and they ended up getting turned into aircraft carriers. So this is Tosa and Kaga. Tosa, I believe, was scrapped, and Kaga was turned into an aircraft carrier. And there's a picture over there. Lady Lex, certainly my favorite American aircraft carrier, especially when it had 8-inch guns. Pretty cool. Probably really ineffective, but hey, it's cool. Hey, it's a war game. We want cool stuff, even if it's impractical. HMS Rodney, loved that British ship. 1930s and 39s. I smell Nazis coming. They're in here somewhere. Yep, here's Lutzow and Graf Spee. So I guess technically it's Admiral Graf Spee. I never enjoyed calling a ship with the Admiral in front of it. I don't know. It just seemed wrong to me. Oh, well. Here's some crazy Japanese designs from the 1930s. Crazy battle cruisers that never made it. I think that's why they also put them in blue. It's like, hey, these never were, but, you know. There's a Soviet Navy, another Italian one, and there's the P cruisers and a French one as well. The P cruisers from the German Navy. Okay, here's Scharnhorst or Gneisenau. No, that's Scharnhorst. Gneisenau's got the mast here. With the blue turret tops. Depending on the mission, they change the turret colors. And I believe this is Lion, right? Yep, Lion, if she would have been completed. Yeah. That was one of the ones that didn't work out for the Washington Treaty. And then 1940 onwards. This is where we're at the tail end here of the book. We have a picture here, the Kirov. I believe that's the latest ship in the whole thing. Here is a picture of Tirpitz. Bismarck and the Tirpitz class. King George V. Richelieu. This was a plan to convert her into a half aircraft carrier. Wacky. The Montana, yeah, that's the U.S. Super Dreadnought. And it's the big boy herself right there, Yamato. And Vittorio Veneto. Yeah, I always like the Italian navies painting the candy stripes on the front for aerial recognition. USS Iowa. Beautiful ship, but I never had one because by the time those were around, there was no surface actions really possibility. So never really liked playing Americans. I'm already American, so I figured, hey, what's the point? I'd rather play somebody I can do funny accents with. But that's just me. And here's the Alaska, beautiful ship. And the Kirov. I think that's okay. Well, we got a index here that's showing how loved this book has been. Anyways, this has been in my dad's collection for a while. He passed away a couple of years ago, and I want to make sure that I held on to this. Absolutely love this book. Highly recommend it. Yes, I have Conways and other things, but Conways, is just black and white. And, this is a really cool book that is, what is it? 30-something years old and is awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. And, something that brings back fond memories. So we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.